Hey guys, this is going to be my 5,000 plus round review for the Smith & Wesson M&P Carry Comp. I've had this gun for a few months now. I've got about 5,000 rounds through the firearm. I've done some adjustments. I've gotten it to a point that I'm very comfortable with, and we will talk about all of the upgrades that I have on it, and then I will talk about how I felt with all those upgrades versus, the consistency of how it shoots. So we're going to start with just how the holster has evolved at this point. I have an Incog X from Safariland, and what I was carrying was a sidecar. And this is what I've typically traditionally done with my other concealed carry firearms, is use a sidecar so you can have an extra mag. But I have currently transitioned over to using this kind of knockoff Neo Mag magnetic holster clip for your magazine. So this just goes into your pocket, and then when you draw it, it's out of your pocket and it's good to go to load your second magazine. So I think that's really good. I haven't had any issues with it. I've been using it for about a week now, and it sits in the pocket really good. If it does come off the magnetic clip right there, it just seats into your pocket. I haven't had that happen yet, but I have forced it to happen, just trying to mess around with it to see if it just sits in your pocket well, or if it will reconnect if it does come loose. And so far, it's been really good. So out in public, when I walk around with it, it just holds on to it great. I don't have to worry about that. So sidecar's gone. We're in CogX. So we're going to flip this around. I have the sticky holster on the back, and what this does is it Velcros on via these sticky pads. The front portion here is the hook Velcro portion, and then there's the soft Velcro sticky pads that go to the back of your holster. And what this does is when it's seated on my belt and inside my waistband, when I go to sit down, this kind of bends over the back of it and prevents the irons, which are actually very sharp and rigid, from jabbing into your belly. And so this is very comfortable, gives me a nice little protection from my own firearm, and it doesn't add to any difficulty for concealing. So this is still very concealable. No issues whatsoever. Like, this isn't going to stick through your shirt because the firearm is in the way. And everything works really well on this so far. So I like this. I might stick with this setup using the Neo Mag as long as this keeps working. Okay, so now we're actually going to talk about the firearm itself. I'm going to unholster it and do a check. We have a visual, and we're going to do a physical inspection. And then we're going to pull the trigger in a safe direction. So now that we know that it's clear, let's talk about it. First upgrade that I did on this was obviously to put a TLR7 light on it, and then I had the EPS Carry Hollow Sun. These are standard for me. Pretty much any red dot will work for me, but what I have found is that the EPS Carry is very good. It's probably only slightly worse than my favorite optic, which would be the Romeo X from Sig Sauer. I would transition this back to a Romeo X, but my Romeo X is not enclosed, and I do like the enclosed system. So if I was going to upgrade, I would go get a Romeo X enclosed, and then get the optics plate for that to put on to this gun. However, I'm not going to go out and buy another $400 optic just to replace it because I like it a little better. The EPS Carry is great. It's about $100 less. I highly suggest it. The Shake Awake technology works great. You can see the dots very clear. I have astigmatism, so when I'm looking at this dot on the video, it looks very circular. But through my own eyes, when I look at this dot, there's a little bit of a star pattern, but it's about the same size as the dot would be anyways, so it doesn't actually affect me. The dot is very clear, and the light works great. I'm going to shine this off screen, but works fine. And it has all the features that a Streamlight would have. So it's got strobes, it's got perp click to stay on, it's got hold to stay on, it's got everything. Okay, second upgrade that I had beyond the light and the optic was the black steel takedown lever. So this is a black steel foldable takedown lever, and I'll show you it works great. When you've got your holster, you can see that this would normally get in the way, but it is foldable. So if I just put it here, you can see the lever folds and goes straight into the holster. No problem. Holster's not going to come off. Gun doesn't come out of the holster. You go to draw, comes out just fine. So does it work? Yeah, it does work. So this takedown lever here, when you've got your thumb on it, gives you a very, very nice recoil management system. What I have found though, unlike some of my other folding gas pedals like the antimatter that goes on your Sub X TLR7, has this rigid part right here. And they squared it off, I guess, for looks, but I wish they had rounded this portion right here, this corner, because what I have happen is you put your thumb here, and then this corner, when it recoils, jabs into your hand. And it's not a big problem. You could probably shoot this 100 times and not have an issue. But if you go to the range like I do, and you shoot off 200, 300 rounds, what you end up with is a little bit of scarring right here. And you can see I have just a circular scar where the black steel has jabbed into my hand over and over because it just recoils back into my thumb. And that tears up your thumb. It's not going to affect your shooting at all. And eventually your hand will callus and won't be an issue. But for some people that might be a deal breaker because they don't want to scar up or mar up their hands. I think the benefit outweighs the cost, however, so your hand's going to have a little bit of a damage on it, but at the end of the day, you're reducing that recoil, you're getting much cleaner shots, you're able to follow through with your initial shot much faster. The port obviously helps with that. The recoil is, I think, 25 to 30% reduced with the port. It's very hard to tell, but when you shoot a 4.25 Smith & Wesson compact, I call it a compact because it's not the full-size version, the port does seem to reduce the recoil from what that feels like, and it feels like it's somewhere between 25 to 30%. All right, that having been said, I have the aluminum frame version of this gun. Now, why would you want a metal frame? What the metal frame does is it makes the gun more rigid. And so a plastic frame, in theory, absorbs some of that recoil, and that can be really beneficial. So why do you want an aluminum frame? Well, my thought process is that you would want a steel frame to add weight to the firearm to reduce that recoil. The heavier the gun is, the easier it's going to be to get a really good grip on the firearm and maintain the recoil. But the problem is that the aluminum frame is about the same weight as the plastic frame, so it actually kind of ends up being better to get the plastic frame to reduce the initial recoil. However, the metal frame has this option that you can get, and I assume that you can do the same with the plastic frame, but it has a kinetic insert from Calculated Kinetics, and it goes right here. And I did a video on it earlier, but it's a 2-ounce addition to the back end of the slide, the frame, sorry, and it goes right under the palm insert right here, and then it's held on by the framer's tool right here. You have to do a modification of your framer's tool. I have the piece right here, but this is the top of the framer's tool that you have to hack off so that you can fit it inside with the new insert. I think this has been a really good addition because what you're doing here is you're adding weight to the back of the gun so that you can get a much nicer purchase on the firearm, and it feels great when you shoot because now you have a little bit of balance from the weight of the gun sticking out really far. This kind of holds it back and it lets you easily level the gun. I think that's really, really nice. So if you do have an aluminum frame, or if you look into it and the plastic frame can accept the Calculated Kinetics insert, it's called the Paragon grip. I think it's well worth the money. I think you can get it from $80 to $90. Okay, last upgrade that I have here is the DPM recoil management system. The DPM recoil management system is a recoil replacement spring that comes with 3, or I think it's 4 spring options that you can slide on, and you can figure out what level of recoil you want. I have the lightest spring on there right now, and what this does, you can see the slide is very buttery smooth, and it works really great. And so the recoil backwards is slightly reduced, but the real reduction comes when the slide slams back forward, and you can feel it when you slide. Pulls back very nicely, but on the return, it's just smooth all the way through. And the reason why this is because it kicks in at different stages of the spring. It's a 3-stage spring, and it's different poundages on the return. And what this does is normally when you fire the gun, the recoil happens and kicks up, okay? And that's obviously dramatic. And then your port obviously kicks in, so it stops that from happening a little bit. But then when you go to aim, your gun is kicked upwards, so your goal is to always return it back to level so that you can shoot off your next round and hit the center of your target. The problem with that is as soon as you fire the gun, first thing happens is the slide kicks back, and then the next thing that happens, I'm going to let go of this slide, but watch what happens to the front of the gun. Goes down, okay? So even with a proper grip, you'll notice that my thumb on the gas pedal prevents it from going up a little bit, but that slide slamming forward is always going to kick it back down. So sometimes what you'll see with a standard recoil spring is that people will shoot a little too fast and they'll hit low because what they're doing is the slide's kicking them back down every time. So this prevents that a little bit and makes it much easier to return to zero and get really good shots off. I highly recommend it. So what have I noticed after 5,000 rounds through this? So I've noticed that there has been no damage to the barrel at all. I've checked it pretty thoroughly. I clean it every time I go to the range. It's still spotless, still clean. Everything functions. I have had 0 malfunctions at all. The only thing that has happened to this firearm that I got worried about was I had one round that didn't want to seat properly. So I had just upgraded my recoil spring, and I popped my mag in, and what had happened was I went to rack the slide, and it stripped the first round off, but the slide stuck right here. And I thought what was happening was the recoil spring was failing to capture the slide all the way forward. But as soon as I took the slide back and I saw the round had a completely warped bullet in it. And it just did not fit in the chamber. And so that was my fault for not actually checking. As you load magazines, you should be checking each round to make sure that the tip of the bullet is actually going to fit in your chamber. So that was a bullet issue, not a firearm issue. So as far as I'm concerned, after 5,000 plus rounds through this firearm, I have had no malfunctions. That says a lot. I know that after around 10,000 rounds, barrels start to have issues. So I'm about halfway there. And as far as I'm concerned, most of that was the testing phase for this gun. So when I do end up having to replace this barrel, I'll just go buy another barrel like this. I'll pretty much trust it straight out of the box. I'll probably fire 500 rounds through it, and then I'll consider it good to go because I've already done a 5,000 round test on this firearm. I highly recommend this. If I was rating this firearm to somebody, and they were like, on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you place this? I would say that with everything that I've done to it, it's probably a 9.5 out of 10. There's room for improvement. Obviously, the trigger with the Apex trigger might be the final upgrade for this firearm. I've seen people talk really highly about it. I'm not fully convinced that the performance trigger straight out of Smith & Wesson isn't very good. I think it is very good, in fact. So here's my take up. There's the wall trigger, very crisp. And then here's the reset. And this is the only issue that I have with this firearm is that the reset is not audible. So I'm going to stop my finger when I actually feel the reset. It's right there. Right there. Okay. So it's about that much travel for the reset. It not having a very clear audible reset is kind of a pain to me. I really like hearing that when I'm shooting. I know not everybody can even hear the reset when they're shooting because loud bang makes it hard, but I've gotten really used to listening for the reset, and it really helps if you can hear it. It is tactile, so you can feel it on your finger, and that's what matters. But, it's just, preference, I guess, for the shooter. That's why I think it's a 9.5 out of 10. Really good trigger, bad reset. The take-up's a little much, but once you get to that wall, that trigger is just a nice, crisp pull. The backstraps are very aggressive textured. So I have goon tape on it to prevent that from scraping up my hand when I shoot, because I like to shoot 200 to 300 rounds at a bare minimum when I go to the range, and that can be really, really bad on your hand. But the aggressive texture is very nice when you're trying to do clean, accurate, fast shots. So I highly recommend shooting both ways, both with goon tape to prevent the texture from messing up your hand, but also practice with it off so that you can get used to that nice aggressive texture, because you're going to get your best shots off with that texture. Final thoughts here. Talon tape, maybe, to add some texture right here where your thumb goes. I know that this is a very smooth material, and people tend to like having texture up high. This doesn't bother me much, so I'm probably going to leave it like this. But if I start having issues with my grip, I might add some Talon tape up here just to get that added texture up high, and same with this side. So those are kind of my final thoughts. I think this is a great firearm. If you are looking to get a what I consider to be a hybrid compact, because it's not the full size M&P, it is a really, really good shooter. I think it all comes down to preference, brand, everything. If you have any other firearm that you would like to recommend, I would love to hear about it. I'm always in the market for new firearms. I don't always go out and buy them right away, but when I'm thinking about what I want, it's nice to hear other people's opinions, especially if they have experience shooting firearms that I've already shot, so that they can compare it. So let's say you recommend something like the Springfield Echelon. It would be really nice to hear how it stacks up trigger-wise to the Smith & Wesson. All of that's great. So if you have any questions, comments, recommendations, I'd love to hear about them in the comments, and thanks for watching, guys.